Hello and welcome to Quick Bites, the video series where we discuss the most recent restaurant industry headlines in as little time as possible. I'm Sam Oches, editor-in-chief of Nation's Restaurant News, joined by Jonathan Mays, editor-in-chief of Restaurant Business. Jonathan, lots to talk about. Still, it's almost the end of the year, but there's still a lot of headlines out there today.
There's plenty of them every single day. It's just kind of hard to keep up.
Every single day keeps our lives very, very busy, but in a way kind of fun, kind of weird considering our first topic. But let's jump into our first topic of Quick Bites today, which is bankruptcies. Bankruptcies, of course, have been kind of a theme of 2024, unfortunately, for so many restaurants that took on debt in COVID to survive the pandemic. Now interest rates have become too much and traffic has gone off a cliff, and so many of these companies are being forced to file for bankruptcy. Let's start the timer. Jonathan, tell me about bankruptcies. Do we think we see an end to this anytime soon?
Probably not anytime soon. First off, the restaurant industry has a lot of restaurant chains. Some of them will periodically file for bankruptcy. It does happen. But look, I don't know that enough restaurants closed during the pandemic. A lot of restaurant chains had an extreme amount of debt, to your point. They had some really costly leases. The most recent one was Eegee's. We've got that is a local concept based out of Tucson, but we've seen a number of small concepts file for bankruptcy. Many of them are really struggling coming out of the pandemic and really do not have the financial wherewithal to continue to go. And there just aren't the buyers out there that are willing to take on these chains. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, agree with you. Unfortunately, too, there's no flip that's going to get switched to make the economy stronger. There's no short-term solution here for restaurants that are struggling because it's going to take some time for traffic to come back, for food costs to go down, for labor costs to go down, inflation to go down. And when all of these variables are still at play, restaurants are still going to struggle. Of course, 2024, we saw Red Lobster file for bankruptcy. We saw TGI Fridays file for bankruptcy. If I could say one trend of 2024 and who was filing, was a lot of, to your point, Jonathan, a lot of smaller brands. There was a lot of full service brands, which I think is kind of an ominous sign for 2025. What we'll see when we start reporting on 2024 performance here in the next couple of months alongside Technomic, we'll see that there was a retrenchment in full service locations because of how much the full service category really struggled this year. And you definitely see that in the bankruptcies of some of those major chains. And like I said, I don't think we're going to see this turn around anytime soon. I suspect 2025, it won't be a record year. Like 2024 was nearly a record, biggest in decades, number of bankruptcies that we saw aside from 2020. 2025 might not be much better. Woo, got it in right there. Woo. We did okay, Jonathan.
We did all right. This is working. Much thanks to Spoons. Okay, so big news out of Taco Bell. They are testing a beverage-only concept. Sam, what the hell?
What the hell indeed. Yeah, let's start that timer. Mas Café is the beverage concept from Taco Bell that they've just announced. They're testing it with Diversified Restaurant Group, one of their Southern California franchisees. I mean, look, is it really so surprising? No, because McDonald's opened Cosmix about a year and a half ago and had great success with Cosmix. They're already expanding it in Texas. And of course, I think the biggest reason why McDonald's opened Cosmix, the biggest reason why Taco Bell is interested in the beverage category is the explosion in drive-through only coffee chains, in particular, Dutch Bros, Seven Brew, Scooters, so many of these concepts that can put a lot of sales into a teeny tiny footprint pretty much anywhere in America. Americans love beverages. They love coffee, yes. They love energy drinks. They're increasingly loving boba. So it makes a lot of sense for a brand like McDonald's and Taco Bell to jump on that trend and offer beverage-only prototypes. Jonathan, do you think this is a long-term thing? Are we going to see a lot more beverage concepts?
I hope not. Look, I'm starting to get frozen yogurt or bagel or cookie vibes with this. I have some concern about the fact that now we've got really two very, very big chains jumping into this. It is really difficult, historically, extremely difficult for very big chains to start really small concepts. So both of these brands, oddly enough, have an uphill battle over the long term. I mean, Cosmix generated a lot of sales and traffic, certainly in the early weeks. You can see some argument for drive-through beverages. In particular, it is people will get beverages all day long. They love going through the drive-through to get them, but there are a lot of these. And it is not as if the United States doesn't have a lot of drive-through beverages as it is.
So much to drink, so little time. Will there be room for them all? That is the question. All right, Jonathan, let's move on to our final subject of the day, which is Chi-Chi's. Everybody remembers Chi-Chi's, right? This was a brand that was around for 30 to 40 years before spectacularly failing when it sickened over 600 people and unfortunately killed 4 through a hepatitis A outbreak in 2004. It filed for bankruptcy and closed. It has remained in public consciousness through retail products. But Chi-Chi's now coming back. The son of the founder wants to bring it back. Jonathan, do you think Chi-Chi's has a place in the restaurant industry in 2024, 2025?
Oh, I suppose it does. But there are so many of these concepts coming back from the dead. It's like a George Romero movie out there right now, Sam. It is. We've got Steak and Ales come back this year. Sweet Tomatoes is coming back. Ground Round, which isn't quite dead, but is close to it. They're coming back. And now Chi-Chi's, which hasn't been around in more than 20 years, is going to open a couple of locations in my neck of the woods, Minnesota. I mean, look, they're going to be able to get some sales certainly in the short term because of nostalgia and all this interest in revisiting some of these old concepts. But I mean, look, a large portion of the population wasn't even alive the last time that Chi-Chi's was around. So there is only so much nostalgia that these brands can live off. And at the end of the day, they are going to have to survive over the long term. And one other point about Chi-Chi's, this is a full service Mexican concept, and full service Mexican is really, really hard to do full service Tex-Mex. That said, I will be at the Chi-Chi's once it's open, and I'm really looking forward to getting some free chips and salsa under a minute. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, there must be something in the water up there in Minnesota, Jonathan, because isn't it Steak and Ale? I think Steak and Ale is opening their first new location up there as well. So it's something about Minnesota, but I do think what you said is a very important thing, which is nostalgia. I think these companies are trying to capitalize on nostalgia and say, hey, remember this? I remember Chi-Chi's commercials. I remember Chi-Chi's in the 90s. It was a big part of the mainstream consciousness, right? And so sure, I'll go try it out. What I'm really curious to see is if people forget about that whole foodborne illness situation. Jonathan, as you and I talked about on our last video, you should not get your customers sick. And unfortunately, it erodes trust when that happens. Chi-Chi's 20 years, could that be enough time for people to give them a try again? I don't know. But I also appreciate what you said, Jonathan. Gen Z and millennials, which are the ones driving nostalgia, they might not remember Chi-Chi's quite as much as a lot of other customers. So I don't know if it's going to find its footing. It may just be a novelty when it does come back. Last thing I'll say is, to your point, full service Mexican, hard to do, but a not very saturated category. So there could be a lot of opportunity. And there it is. Quick Bites, another one down. Our thanks to our producer Spoons for keeping us honest this time so that we can stay under our allotted time. I'm Sam Oches, editor-in-chief of Nation's Restaurant News. He's Jonathan Mays, editor-in-chief of Restaurant Business. As always, go to nrn.com and restaurantbusinessonline.com for more news, insights, and exclusives and reports on the restaurant industry. Talk to you next time.